We'll go ahead and get the stream going. If you want to watch on my Discord screen share, you could do that, but if you want the ability to rewind, as I do, I will paste the link. And what we're going to do is get started at least on CRUD operations on our MERN stack tail runner. So if I open up the code base, and as you guys all know, this is on GitHub, let me make sure that my repo is up to date. Because if it is up to date, you can just pull down all the code. Yeah, you can see updated yesterday. And so go here, clone the repo, pull the code. You can get all that is current on this repo by doing that. And we'll go ahead and get started. On the back end, we know there's a start dev script. And on the front end, if I go into my front end directory, bless you, I like to run this build auto script, which does an npm build, and you can kind of see gets my dist folder ready for those static files to be served. And so before I get started on CRUD operations, I did dig just a little bit, and I don't know if you guys are following along, if you're noticing these errors. I was mistaking. I thought I knew the cause of this. I thought my bootstrap validation was the cause of this, but I was actually mistaking. It was not my bootstrap validation script causing these errors. And I spent like 20 minutes, 30 minutes trying to troubleshoot bootstrap being the cause of this problem, and it wasn't. I ended up commenting out. My bootstrap validation script, which was in the login form JSX. I've got this right here, this use effect hook, and I want to point this out. There's two arguments here inside this function, this anonymous function. So you could see the first is the script, and so everything in between these curlies on line 39 and here, this is the first argument. Excuse me, in between these blue curlies, so between 18 and 40. The second argument is an empty array, and this is the dependency array. And so what this indicates is essentially run only once when the component loads. So this is a component lifecycle event. And when you leave this empty, it basically says you only want to run this use effect script after the component is loaded. And why that's important is because, well, you got a bunch of script here, you got a bunch of HTML that needs to be available for the document object model. Like, this has to be in the browser's memory so that, for example, the query selector all of the class needs validation. Well, I got a form down here that has a class of needs validation. So this HTML has to be in the browser's memory, in the DOM, if you will, before this script runs. Okay, so that's why this second argument is important. You need to go ahead and let the component load so that the HTML is in the browser's memory so that this script can work with that HTML. Okay, so I was confused because I thought that this was good code, and it was good code. It wasn't actually the root of my problem. The root of my problem, you guys might remember I had a failed, not a failed demo, but just a mediocre demo, where I was bringing in templates. And I was kind of showing you how to theme and template and use different Bootstrap templates. And the failed part of it was not the theming or the templating part of it, but when I started to bring in like Next.js, that did fail. I was not successful in bringing in Next.js. But if I kind of rewind that activity, what I did during that activity is in my front end, there's an index HTML. And I actually brought over a lot of files, like under assets vendor, that I ended up like, well, those are still there, but I'm not using any of this. Assets vendor, here's a Bootstrap CSS that I don't really end up using. And if I go down here, here's some more JavaScript that I don't really wind up using. Okay, this is where this main.js file, this was from that template, from this bootstrap made.com. And actually this little sucker right here is the root of my problem. This script that I'm linking to, again, if I open up my, oh, I just closed my index. If I open up my index, index HTML, I'm linking to that file, and okay, let's delete that. I'm not using it anyways. Yeah, save that up. Okay, and that was actually, if I clear that, okay, that was actually the cause of my problem. Okay. Got a register page, got a login page. If I make something up, I get invalid email or password. We can log in. Right now it just redirects me to the login screen. Of course, I'm going to change that. I'm going to redirect me somewhere else. And my credentials are persisting. I've got a little browser cookie up here with an auth token in it. And this auth token is going to help us with our permissions, right? That little with credentials piece that when we log in, that's going to help us, because on our back end we have a bunch of authorization rules, like you have to have certain permissions. Nonetheless, let's kind of save that. And that's the current state of the application, and that's the fix. Probably I just need to clean this stuff up. If I'm not using it, like, it's not efficient to link to things that you don't use, right? So let's just boot that up and refresh. Well, why did that do that? Apparently I may be using this Bootstrap CSS more than I realize. So if I boot that up,
I see it.
What do you?
The vendor CSS file, the top one. There's a quotation.
There's that guy.
I think that's called in that corner one top.
Maybe
I'm not too sure.
No, yeah, you're right. That was a random little quote hanging out in my source code. I still wouldn't expect this to happen. To take it back to hello world. So for time being, the point is I need to clean up the stuff I'm not using. Maybe I'm using some of it, but not all of it. Let me delete those 3. Reboot. Let me make sure that my front end is rebuilding. Okay. There we go. So the point, yeah, I'm probably using some Bootstrap CSS in there. Okay, so we cleaned a little bit of that up. Maybe more work to do. But what I want to do now is get working on the CRUD operations. And so if I do go to my database, I got a users collection, but then there's a separate collection that I have called pet owners. So users this is my user registration, and then I got pet owners, and I'm gonna do CRUD operations on my pet owners, and obviously my data isn't very structured very well at this point, so I might need to actually clean up my data just a little bit. But nonetheless, I've got what's referred to as a pet owner, first name, last name, an array of strings under the property called dog. I've got some orders, which we had a user had many orders. So John Doe had some different orders. We set that up. I don't think we really did anything with the wish list. Well, we do have one. So I got one kind of structured like that. So we're going to do CRUD operations on pet owners. So it does kind of make sense to just kind of go back to the back end and make sure that, the listing of the pet owners is in a decent shape. So if I go to my back end routes, so here I called it dog owner, but remember here pet owners, that was some of the naming inconsistencies that I didn't like about my code. But you can kind of see here on some routes we have different permissions that we worked with, and to get all the pet owners, we have a couple of permissions. And so what's the full path to get there? It's going to be /pet owners, so /API/pet owners, and then that's the full backend route. Now, obviously, has permission can blah blah was just a little demo that I had, so I'm going to delete that. Not super important. And I did not flush this out completely, but nonetheless, here's if rec.auth. Well, has permission. Let's take a look at has permission. Has permission already checks for rec.auth, right? So if there's no auth variable on your request object, so I actually don't need to do that anymore. But basically, this backend route calls this database method get all pet owners, and I don't have in this particular example, I don't have my search interface. So I need to bring that in. So to do add back and search functionality. So let's go ahead and hit that backend route. We're going to have to log in first. We're going to hit it from Postman. So here's my get right off the top. If I'm not logged in, I'm going to get an error. Let's save and log in. User logged in successfully. If I go back to my get request. Okay, now, why is this happening? I made this catch-all route that I didn't listen to my own advice. The advice or the rule is that the order of the middleware matter. Here's all my backend routes, and then this is a catch-all route that says, hey, if you can't catch it on the back end, try and look on the front end. And so what's happening is it's sending that request right away to the front end and not finding it. So I need to allow these back-end routes to happen and then send the routes to the front end. So it's just an order of operations thing here. If I actually move that line of code below, which a couple of you in my class encountered that yesterday. So now I can log out. So let me go ahead and clear my cookies so I'm logged out as we get our little Toastify down there, if you will. Now if I hit my backend route, notice now I'm getting you are not logged in. So my backend API is catching it and telling me you are not logged in, which this is my exception handling that's ultimately giving me that error. Res.status 401, error.message is you are not logged in. So now if I go ahead and log in, user logged in, and if I now list my dog owners, we can get access to our dog owners. So backend is now kind of in a decent spot so that we can build a front end on it. And so give me a second as I get some code to reference from other projects. All right, so focusing now a little bit more on the front end. Going to the front end, source, components. I've got a component here already called pet owner list. Now, this is because I've done this before. And so it does make sense to not recreate the wheel since this has been done before. Now this pet owner list has an edit. It's receiving some things, and everything's based on sending these methods down and this data down into the component. Right now our app, it's easy to send things down, but I don't know that the state belongs inside of app.jsx. To me, the state can be managed inside of the list, because when the application loads, do you want to pull the data out of the database for the pet owners just as the home page loads, which is a login screen? That doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm going to have to refactor this. Now I see I got a modal going on here, selected owners. And so, really I just need to use Axios, and then on a component load all my pet owners, and then map out my pet owners. So I'm gonna, for now, I'm going to take those out. I'm gonna take out this method. And this whole selected owner thing. Let's see, selected owner. Okay, I'll keep my selected owner hook in there now. And my show modal, I've got a little bit of that built in. So let's kind of start from here. And I've got use state hook. And let's bring in use effect. Okay, so again, this second argument is on component load. You don't need, you just, no const use effect, it's just use effect. Okay, so all I'm going to do is console log this, and for now I'm going to comment out this little JSX code here because that's clearly not going to work without my pet owners. And I want to set it up so that after you log in, you go to the pet owner list. So if I go to my login form, handle submit, we're going to navigate to the root. Let's make a front end path here. That is the pet owners list. So a front end route / pet owners loads the pet owner list. And now when I log in, I have a front end route to hit. So now I will navigate to pet owners, refresh, doesn't like my password now. What's that? Yeah, the password you just used was found in a data breach. Oh, no kidding. 123456 was found in a data breach. Google Password Manager recommends changing your password now. I really don't want that every single time, so maybe I changed my password. The question is, do I have the backend route to change my password? That is the question. So if I go to my user.js, register to log in, nope, I sure don't. So I could, to do Implement change password route. Well, I was just gonna see how good my AI was, and it didn't work.
I'm not talking to you. It keeps doing things I don't like.
So that's fine. I'll deal with that little problem for now. But nonetheless, we are now navigating to pet owners, and we can log out, and it takes me back to the login screen. So deal with that, or maybe disable your notifications from Chrome. Okay, so now on our pet owners, we need to get our pet owners. So this is going to be in the use effect, which should have a pet owners mounted. Now it is interesting. There we go. It just loads once. Log out, clear it. Okay. So pretty good there. So pet owners mounted. And this is where we're going to bring in Axios. Now. Okay, so on here, so you write this method and then you call that method. So inside of useEffect, we're writing a method called fetch pet owners, and it's an async method. I don't think you even have to call it with the await keyword here. But you don't have to write this as async, but if you do write it as async, you write it first and then you call it. Now why can I not do await? It's not happy with it, but nonetheless. So here, certainly got to clean this up a little bit. Here's our method. It's an async method with no inputs, and we await Axios.get, our backend localhost 2024, which API pet owner. So this is the backend route. We need to pass a few more options here. So I'm going to say with credentials is true. You leave that. If you leave that with credentials off, you're going to encounter the authorization errors. You're not going to pass your credentials through with all the permissions that we have. And then instead of logging our data, which I'm just going to call this pet owners. So pet owners, set pet owners. So we're going to set the pet owners with the data that comes back. I'll also console log the data. So when this page loads, hit the Axios with credentials, log the data, and set the hook, the use state hook, with that data. Let's log out. We're going to have to refresh the page. Okay, console logging our data. We are getting the data very clearly inside of the console. So that's good. Now I just want to show this. If we take this with credentials off, I think everything breaks. Right? So if I save that without that with credentials, and I log out, I refresh, I lied. I expected it to break and it didn't break. It breaks somewhere. I'm not remembering where. I thought that was it. I'm going to leave that in there for now so it doesn't break later. Console log data, set pet owners to the data. We don't need a console log that anymore. We just need it in our pet owners. Now, taking a look at the markup from before, I was mapping each pet owner, and we had a card. Each pet owner was going in a card with a bootstrap column of 4, so about 1/3 of the screen. And then we had a first and last name. We mapped over the dogs. Now, let's get the data again. So dogs array. If all of our data is structured the same, okay, you could do something like pet owner dot dogs, and so now you're only mapping the dogs if they exist for that pet owner. This handle edit was removed, and this is a modal for the delete button. So let's save that. Let's see if I log out, refresh. Cool. So we now are looping through our pet owners and putting them in cards, bootstrap cards. We got an edit button, which is non-operational yet, and a delete button that is also non-operational. Log out. Log in. Obviously, that delete button is causing some issues. The fix to that is to make it operational. Now, in the lab, there is a component for the lists, and there's a separate component for the list item. And so basically what you do to refactor this is that this entire, from line 41 through 61, all of this gets put into its own component. And all that really does is it kind of minimizes the markup that's inside of this list. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the sake of, basically you're minimizing the source code in any one given file by taking all this out and putting it in a list or into a pet owner item component. So I'll add pet owner, call it a single item, JSX. And I'm going to start by cutting that out. And here's what we do. We're going to say export default function pet owner item. And it takes in an owner. And I'm going to return and paste that code right there. Now, everything that was pet owner becomes own. Well, how about we do this? We say pet owner like that. And then we've got the bootstrap pencil and the bootstrap trash icons that we need to port over. Bless you. Bless you. And now in the list, what we do here is we say pet, we need to import this up at the top. Pet owner item. So it looks like this. Import pet owner item from / pet owner item .jsx. And then we use this component and pass the pet owner now the key, because each root item needs a key. Pet owner ._ID. And I might need to pass that show modal function down, so I'll go ahead and pass that down. But I'm not using it, I don't think, at this point. At least that's not working. So now my list, my pet owner list, will map over my pet owners and send them down to the items. The items receive it and then spit it out. And so if I did that right, I'm going to save it, Control S, do my build, and refresh. Oh. Okay, so that's simply refactoring all that markup into its own component, since it cleans that up a little bit. Edit's always the hard one. So we're doing read. We've got a little bit more to work with the read. We definitely want to bring in the search functionality. So I'll have to backtrack a little bit on my back end on that. So a little bit more to do with read. Update we'll handle tomorrow. Create and delete are the next couple things to work on. Now the question I'm thinking about is, can I write the delete function in the item itself, or do I need to write it here? The list is here, but we send the whole item down, and so we're getting a whole pet owner. Really what we need is the ID. So I think we could do it from here. I think we can write our delete function inside of the pet owner item. Okay, so here we've got on click handle show modal. Now I did have this handle show modal. Let me go back to that function. Handle show modal. Handle delete. So all of this show modal can also be brought over. This is a bootstrap modal that when you turn the hook show modal to true, that it shows this modal dialog. So everything from there down, I'm going to cut and paste underneath. And so I got to bring the hook over, set show modal. Now this just becomes selected owner. Selected owner, there's only one owner here, which is pet owner. And here is a handle confirm delete. So which is now Just need to call this the same thing here. So let's see if I can get this modal back up and running. It involves this hook. When you click the button that says delete, it passes a pet owner into handle show modal. Is that another thing I got to bring over? Handle show modal. There we go. Just doesn't really do much. It just set show modal to true, and we don't have to do that anymore. So set show modal to true is what we need to do. So here, set show modal to true. Okay, let's log out, let's refresh, let's log in. Submit. Let's see what my error is. Handle show modal is not defined, which is where? Handle, not there, but it is right there. So we got to take that out. Clear the console. Go back, refresh the home screen. Keep an eye on the console. Let's log in. Use state is not defined. Easy thing to fix. So somewhere we never imported use state. Import use state from React. That'll allow us to write line 7. Let's go back. Let's refresh. Let's clear the console. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm hoping that my troubleshooting steps somehow help you guys. If it helps to see how I troubleshoot these problems. Hopefully, you know, what you're learning is you're keeping an eye on the console the whole time, watching for error messages, and trying and trying and trying. Yes? Yeah, that's right. Okay, now we got that going. So if I click delete, now it says, are you sure you want to delete John Doe? So I'm getting my modal window to pop up. And I'm getting that functionality going, which is nice, just having it function that way. I like modal windows for these purposes. And so now we actually have to write the delete. On click, handle confirm delete. Right now it's just a console log, but we need to bring in Axios and call our backend. Import Axios from Axios. Oh, by the way, I'm going to delete this now that we've refactored that and use a .env file right here. So right now my front end has a .env. Use backticks and import meta env dot variable name. So again, remember on React, specifically when you build it with Vite, your variables have to start with Vite. I believe it's Vite underscore. And so let's refactor that. Go back, refresh the page, console. Okay, so we're still logging in. If I click delete, cancel, these different buttons are working. Now we just got to call Axios. Somewhere along the way I decided to console log the local host. Let's go back here. Try. Catch. Okay, what's our path? Axios.delete localhost. So let's refactor that to our .env. Import meta. So it should be the delete route. API pet owners ID. API pet owners ID. Now where this becomes a pain, because I just refactored my delete method to do all of it inside of pet owner item. What happens is the delete's going to work, but then you have to refresh your pet owners. And so the pet owners are then going to be updated so I need to trigger an event to basically pull the data again back here on the list. I need to update the list. So I delete the item down here, so let me show this, that this is going to be a problem.
You pass use effective props and put it in pet owner item.
Say that again.
So could you pass use effect in through props?
I've never done that. Let's see, can you pass use effect in through props? See, like back here, you would add this as a dependency. You say, hey, pet owners. Now, if I were to do a delete here, anytime the pet owners list changes, then it would update the list. So that's how you do it, like if you edit one or delete one of your pet owners. But, and so, I'm gonna think about this. So let me kind of, so I'm not sure. Maybe I need to do my delete functions, and that's not hard to bring that confirm delete back up and pass it down. So maybe that's what I do. Axios.delete pet owner ID. What I'll do is maybe I'll just send them back. So maybe I'll just trigger a refresh that way. Maybe that works. Okay, let's. At this point, I'll just console.log deleted. Import use navigate from React Router DOM, and then I'll say navigate is use navigate, and then we're going to navigate to pet owners. So maybe this triggers a refresh. I don't. Let's log out, refresh, and start it up. Evan at Rankin. Okay. So notice I've got a middle column for Antoine, but if I refresh, I have to refresh the page. So the delete happened. The delete happened, but it's not, that's the problem that I figured was going to happen. And so let's take this function up. And pass it down. Now if you pass it down, you probably also need a pet owner object to pass down to. Or maybe a pet owner ID. Okay, so I'm gonna cut. Go back to my list. Okay, so now handle confirm delete, handle confirm delete, I also got to turn my modal window off. But here's handle confirm delete, here's handle. So send this function down. So I have to receive it. Now you write this differently. We're going to on click. Event object on handle confirm delete, handle confirm delete, EVT, and the ID pet owner dot underscore ID. Now here, I might have to write one more thing to also set the show modal to false, or to, to false. So I need this on click to call two functions. So I'm gonna have to refactor this to call two functions. Right now, it's calling one. All that, so that now, let's see. I'm gonna pass my toast down to the list. That way, instead of console logging user deleted, I'll throw it in a toast. So pet owner league, and here we'll say show success. Show success. Show success. And now I'll show success. Okay. So here, all right, right now my use effect gets the pet owners when the component loads. But I want to do that now. When you modify the delete counter, and that goes up, it starts off at 0. I'll increase it by 1. Oh, wait a minute, wrong spot. That's on the fetch. Whoops, don't want that. Here, now, set delete counter to go up by 1. And now whenever my delete counter is modified, I want you to refetch the pet owners. You know, I probably could have just implemented this delete counter and sent it down and then called that mutator there. That would have been a way to keep that in the child. Nonetheless, I think we're getting close. Okay, so let me go back and log out. Log in. I'm running out of Antoine's. I might have to create a couple more. We'll have to create a couple more Antoine's. back, log out, refresh. So, fetching pet owners. If I go to delete and click delete, okay, pet owner is not defined. Okay. So, refresh. The delete happened, but it is giving me an error, which here pet owner is not defined. It's a show success deleted pet owner. So that was crashing, so that was never running, so we never did that, so that's good. In fact, we don't even need to show the success anymore. It should just refresh the page. Clear it out, log out. We're almost out of Antoine's. Same error. Pet owner is not defined. Pet owner ID. So we're definitely running this delete method. And I think let's add a dog owner. Okay, we should have 3 new dog owners. Maybe it just needed a refresh. So let's take it back to the root. Okay, so e.dogs.map is not a function, so I added some new owners and my data's not playing nice. So let me refresh my pet owners here, take a look at my database. Okay, dogs is a string in this case, not an array, so let me refactor my backend to make it a dog array. Back up. Dog owner. Posting. So our owner is coming from rec.body. And here I just added 1 dog. If I do that, it should be an array. And I have to fix that in my backend so that I don't allow just string. Even if it is 1 dog, I need to put it into an array. I could fix that on my backend, but for right now, just to get past that, go back, refresh. Okay. Aha, got it. Okay, so now let's just add a few more dog owners. 1, 2, 3. And if I log out, here's my dog owners. And if I confirm I delete, there you go. All right, so in the vein of just doing a little bit each day, we got a few more functions brought in: the reading of items, the deleting of items. We have to do adding new, we have to do editing, we have to do search interfaces. There's a lot to do, but again, I'm just kind of sprinkling this across many days. So as I can add new dog owners, show them, and delete them. Okie doke, guys. I'll stop today's demo here. You guys are working through your labs. Let me know if you have questions.